Good evening, everyone. Severe Weather Team 9 meteorologist Nathan Chun joining you for this edition of Nate at 8. And coming up for this edition of Nate at 8, we're going to be tracking, well, it's been nice while we haven't had it, but the heat and the humidity ramping up. So we'll notice that hot and humid weather return here over the next couple of days, and the humidity at least not going anywhere, although temperatures are going to start to trend cooler. Why? More cloud cover and an increase in rain chances. So thanks so much for joining me for this edition of Nate at 8. Some of that's what we're going to be talking about coming up for this edition. Yes, we'll dive into those rain chances picking up, the heat, the humidity picking up, and discuss if we could spot any potential impacts on the horizon with those showers and thunderstorms. Not too many specifics, as again, we're still a few days out before we start to notice those rain chances really pick up into the weekend, but we'll touch on that as well if we could be looking at any potential impacts coming our way. So starting off with the temperatures and the humidity, which has been a big story as of recent, right? We have felt it. Thankfully, with the drop in humidity, we finally notice a drop in these temperatures at night. Finally getting those lows back below that 60-degree mark. Our current temperatures now in the 70s, coming off of highs that were to the 80s. Again, seasonable, but the bigger story was certainly this. Lows mid to upper 50s for this morning. 55 New Philadelphia, 58 the Wheeling, Ohio County Airport. And looking more exclusively at the Wheeling, Ohio County Airport, that low of 58 degrees. The coolest in about a month. In fact, technically a little over that, 32 days ago. The coolest low since June 20th, which also featured a low of 58 degrees at the Wheeling, Ohio County Airport. And since then, what we have noticed, 60s, 70s for a string of lows. And again, the culprit for this, they often coincide with each other this time of the year, the humidity, these dew points. We've seen dew points 60s, 70s, and have not fallen into the 50s, allowing temperatures that then fall in the 50s as well. We notice the break in those muggy dew points, notice finally a break in those mild and warm nights for this morning. And we're not quite done with this yet, although I do think that overall we can trend a little warmer into tomorrow morning. We're not quite done with it yet. You know, it's still on the cool, comfortable side. Yes, we can trend a degree or two warmer. Is it really noticeable, though? Not in my opinion. I don't think it's really noticeable into tomorrow morning. It's still on the cool, comfortable side. Now, when it is noticeable, then by Thursday morning. So we've got one more night. We're still cool and comfortable tonight. Absolutely gorgeous evening. I mean, almost picture perfect, right? Just absolutely gorgeous evening. And very nice overnight tomorrow morning. Then by Thursday morning, Friday morning, the story starts to change, right? Story starts to change. We're getting back to a lot of the same that we've seen over the past month. Mild, warm, muggy. That's our future into these mornings by Friday, and that will just continue through the weekend. Lows back into the 70s. Yes, this then coincides with that uptick in humidity as well, as we are in that more really, for what we've noticed as of recent, it really feels comfortable to us to deal with these dew points in the 50s. You'll notice then we get back to feeling that humidity likely tomorrow to creep up throughout the day. I still think overall it's still more manageable. It's still more manageable tomorrow. It's not overly humid. We're not instantly sweating as soon as we step outside the door tomorrow. But yes, we will likely be then by the time we get into the weekend. That's when we get that just unbearably humid conditions by Friday and the weekend, dew points in the 70s, and uncomfortably humid by Thursday. So uncomfortably humid by Thursday, unbearably humid by Friday and the weekend. But at least for tomorrow, while we'll notice more with respect to today, it's still more manageable. It is. It's still more manageable for tomorrow, but it starts to become less manageable by the time we get into Friday and the weekend, and even for Thursday, likely as well. Austin, good evening. Hopefully you had a wonderful day off. Thank you very much. I did. Today was another hot day, but felt refreshing. Definitely not looking forward to the upcoming mugginess this week. And Austin, yes, it was nice to enjoy the break from the humidity, but unfortunately it is short-lived. We're noticing it ramp right back up, and at least stay with us into the first half of next week, as we're likely still noticing quite a humid stretch of weather. So we get to enjoy it while it still lasts here tonight into tomorrow. Again, still not too terribly bad for tomorrow, but it does start to ramp up after that into the weekend. Joe, good evening. Thanks for tuning in. It felt like squirrel season this morning. Bluegill is joining us saying that. Thank you very much for joining, all of you, for joining us for this edition of Nate 8 this evening. And when we look at clouds and radar, not only is it just a gorgeous evening, and barely a cloud in sight, right? It feels great. And it's going to be looking great this evening, and we'll maintain little cloud cover as we go through the night into tomorrow. And while we will start to notice a further uptick in temperatures and humidity over the next couple of days, in general, in terms of how it looks, it's still going to be similar. Lots of sunshine ahead for your Wednesday as well as Thursday. Few clouds in the mix. High temperatures ramping up a bit more, well in the 80s for Wednesday. By Thursday, topping off around 90. So very warm, hot as over the next couple of days, but still quite a bit of sunshine. The rain at bay, quite a bit of sunshine, not many clouds, It's similar, right, with respect to today, but the bigger change is in the temperatures and the humidity as we go into Thursday. Now, when the story will further change, if we fast forward a little bit more, is Friday. So this is when we'll start to notice more changes. And Friday and the weekend, our highest temperatures likely start to trend a little cooler. So do not look to reach near 90 Friday or the weekend, but what's going to start to trend is a little cooler at that point, even though the humidity is even getting worse and dew points are likely in the 70s, is the cloud cover and some rain. So not a steady rain, right? Not a washout Friday or the weekend, likely not, but we will be noticing more of these periodic scattered showers and thunderstorms return. So we get back into that variety of hit or miss, right? And we'll notice more likely of these showers and thunderstorms at times going throughout the course of Friday, Saturday, and even at least a few into Sunday as well. So that 3-day stretch we're going to be watching going through the weekend, that we still have to dodge some more rounds of rain. Now, again, keep in mind this past weekend, right, how we still had plenty of dry times. Not to say it's going to repeat again for this weekend. Just keep in mind, of course, that we're dealing with this type of scattered precipitation this time of the year. There's still dry times to be had, right? There certainly still is as we go throughout this 3-day stretch. But yes, we will be tracking more of the scattered showers and thunderstorms in place Friday, Saturday. Again, at least a few continuing then into Sunday. So just be prepared to dodge some rounds of rain on planning anything outdoors Friday and going through the weekend. Again, not a washout, but just something to keep in mind that anything you are planning Friday or the weekend, just be prepared for at least a round of rain. It's certainly possible. And yes, as the humidity picks up, we're going to start to deal with some of those very heavy downpours returning. So watch that intensity of that rain can be high as we extend through the weekend and Friday as well. So with those heavy downpours, yes, unfortunately, that potential for localized flooding will be there Friday, Saturday, and likely continuing into Sunday as well. And the potential for severe weather, well, we'll keep an eye on that. It's a little early to make that call, but I don't think it's I don't think you can quite rule it out as we go through the weekend. It's just one of the situations we have to monitor. It's still a little early, right, to be diving into that potential for the weekend at this point into the week, but that is something we'll certainly also keep an eye on, is that potential for some strong to severe thunderstorms, in addition to that potential for localized flooding from Friday, Saturday, and into Sunday. The emphasis will be in the afternoon and evenings on those days, but I think there is potential for at least some into the morning hours as well for Friday as well as Saturday. And again, into Sunday, certainly. In fact, more of that rain Sunday could be in line with the morning hours and then trending drier as the day progresses. I think we can see that trend on Sunday, where it's a potential for a little more of that precipitation earlier in the day and then starting to trend drier as the day does progress. So that's what we're going to be looking for with the rain outlook. And again, temperatures during the stretch will start to trend a little bit cooler after Thursday. So when dry weather is maintained here over the next couple of days is when temperatures are ramping up. Again, still more tolerable for the humidity tomorrow, but it will be present. By Thursday, then it is humid. It's back to uncomfortably humid, highs near 90, and the humidity will come into play tomorrow, making it feel a degree or two warmer. So highs upper 80s, it will likely feel around 90 degrees for tomorrow. So, it's feeling hot, right? It's feeling hot. It's feeling a bit humid. It starts to become more uncomfortable to be outside tomorrow with respect to what we had for today. Then by Thursday, it is hot as well as humid. And at that point, we're likely talking at least a handful of degrees is how warmer it feels than the actual air temperature. So as highs near 90, we're likely at least feeling to around the mid 90s when you factor in that humidity as well by Thursday. Then by Friday, that humidity is looking even worse Friday and the weekend. That's when it's just unbearably humid, likely to the point where you just almost start to instantly sweat when you step outside the door. Just horrible humidity levels likely by Friday. That continues through the weekend. That then coincides when we're likely dealing with these scattered showers and thunderstorms periodically in place Friday through the weekend, and high temperatures will likely start to trend a little bit cooler than at this point with the cloud cover in addition to some rounds of rain. That can start to trend us cooler as we go through the weekend. But again, it's still that you factor in those unbearably humid conditions, and it's still likely feeling close to 90, even despite that drop in temperatures as we go through the weekend. Now, early next week, rain chances do look to lower. Humidity, though, I still think it's rather humid. I don't think it's dropping much, those dew points early next week, and those highs are likely still well in the 80s. We can get a little further drop in that humidity than arriving closer to the middle to latter part of next week. So hopefully that stays to be true, that we can notice a little further drop in that humidity, maybe a little further drop in temperatures. This is in line then as we look further into that 10 days. And going into next Friday, that's actually in line with the start of August. And there is that potential, I think, going into that time period late next week for the very beginning of August, then into that following week. There is a potential as we start the month that we can get into another cooler stretch of weather that would then likely coincide with a drop in some those dew points as well. At least it wouldn't be unbearably humid likely with that stretch either. So there is that potential. So, we get through this hot and really humid stretch of weather. I think there's that potential late next week into the following week. We're looking at it next Friday, that following weekend, that's when that potential could be there for a bit of a cooler stretch of weather, a little less humid weather, right? I think there is that potential. So if you're wondering, after tonight, and when's the next period of some potentially cooler, less humid weather, that would likely be it late next week into that following weekend. It looks like that beginning of August time period could present itself to be trending a little bit below normal, at least a little cooler stretch of weather, in addition to likely what would coincide with at least nothing that's real horrible for the humidity as well. Likely would bring some relief, especially with respect to this weekend. So we may notice quite a difference from one weekend to the next. The unbearably humid conditions of this coming weekend could very well not repeat for the following weekend. So hopefully that will come to fruition, but it does look like there is that potential into the beginning of August for a bit of a cooler pattern in place that would likely then present not as horrendous humidity levels either coming our way. Austin says, I think the fall grass is starting to come in. Austin saying, thanks, Shelly. Saying thank you, Nate. Thank you, Shelly. Thank you for tuning in. Yes, fall grass for sure. Bluegill mentioning as well with the fall grass coming in. Good evening there, Lola. Thanks for tuning in. And then Ian, good evening. 75 in Maynard right now. Hopefully, hoping the models are right and August brings cooler temps and less heavy rain chances. I agree. At least the beginning of August looks that way. Hopefully, at least into that first week of August, we can get a cooler pattern in place. That would certainly be nice, right? That sounds great, especially after, we got some of that here near term. It was nice to see that drop in the humidity and temperatures here for the beginning of this week, but certainly would be nice to see that for return for at least a couple days. But if we could even string together a few days of that lower humidity, that would be amazing, wouldn't it? We still have it in place tonight, but after tonight, it starts to leave us, unfortunately. And we'll notice it even tomorrow throughout the day, that humidity creeps up and we'll start to feel it. And it starts to become, really almost hot. We're well in the 80s tomorrow. And then it is hot when highs are likely in the 90s on Thursday. Still a lot of sunshine the next couple of days. That's for sure. It looks similar. It looks very similar with respect to today over the next couple of days. It's just that the heat starts to become more excessive. And then eventually the humidity, especially by Thursday, starts to become more excessive. And then it's back to unbearably humid conditions again Friday through the weekend. And I think even into early next week. But hopefully later next week, into the beginning of August, we can set up to be getting into a less humid and hopefully cooler stretch of weather. That would be amazing. Wouldn't it? Sounds great. Sounds great coming off of this past month, doesn't it? Sounds great. Renee says humidity is terrible, and I couldn't agree more. Yeah, we are. I think we're all ready for a taste of what we just had, especially for this morning. We're all looking forward to that. And again, hopefully we can get at least some of that returning. Not anytime soon, unfortunately. And we've got tonight. We're holding on to tonight. But after this, we've got a week here likely where a lot of this weather, a lot of this stretch here over the next week is just going to be unbearably humid before we can, from about a week from now, I think we can, into late next week, into, I guess it'd be a little over a week from now, considering it's Tuesday. It'd be a little over a week from now, but a little over a week from now, I think we can start to see that drop in the humidity, and could coincide then likely with a drop in the temperature. So getting into a little cooler pattern, quite possibly into the beginning of August. Debbie's saying, love the heat. Debbie's loving the heat. And yes, you're going to love, Debbie, again, that the temperatures are picking up. So you're going to love the next couple of days. Highs back closer to 90 over the next couple of days, and a little bit cooler, but still well in the 80s likely going through the weekend, and then probably back closer to 90 again early next week. So yeah, certainly a warm to a hot stretch of weather, certainly from this point on. Very warm, hot for a lot of the next week up into next Tuesday. The next Wednesday, Thursday could start to cool down a bit into the following weekend. Cindy, Nate, whatever happened to the new girls? So you're likely talking about Hannah George. So she was interning with us this summer, was able to actually cover, some shows on air as well as our intern this summer. But she was just with us, here over the past couple of months for the summer internship. So she's, heading back to school going into the fall. So, she's heading back to school. So, but it was great having her. I assume that's who you're talking about. It was great having her, be part of Severe Weather Team 9, but she is getting ready to head back to school. So she's no longer with us right now. But yes, it was great having her while she was here with us over the summer as part of an internship. And then she did, work on some shows with us. And now she's heading back to school. Got to finish up school. Renee, hope August is better. I agree, Renee. I hope August is better as well. We're all hoping. We are crossing our fingers, bringing out all the lucky charms, whatever we have, to certainly hope that we see that lower humidity in place for August. Maybe even a stretch of some cooler days. I know maybe some hot days sprinkled in, right? Some of us still like those hotter days, so maybe some poolside days, but if we can sprinkle some of those in without it being horribly humid, right? And then start to get some cooler days for some of us that are wanting some of those cooler days. I mean, that's picture perfect, but yeah, Mother Nature does not always like to deliver what we want, huh? That's the fortunate part. That's for sure. It's very rare that Mother Nature actually listens to us and delivers the weather that we wish for. Renee, great seeing Brian Ivy. Yes, it was. And Brian will be filling in more for us here over the next couple of weeks. So keep an eye out. You'll spot more of some Brian Ivy. But yeah, it was great having him back as well. But he'll be filling in some more. You'll be able to see him on some more shows coming up over the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned for a chance to see more of Brian Ivy. But yeah, certainly great to have Brian back with us as well. Certainly. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in. I appreciate it as always. Thanks so much for tuning in to this edition of Nate at 8. I hope everyone enjoyed this gorgeous weather that we have in place. And again, tonight, still one of the opportunities, if you want to open up the window, let some of that cooler, more comfortable, refreshing air in. It's still in place tonight. Again, not quite as cool as what we had for this morning, again, tomorrow morning, but not far off. It's similar. It is similar tomorrow morning. It's past that then, that if you're opening up the windows into Thursday morning, Friday morning, Saturday morning, unfortunately, it's just kind of that warm, sticky, muggy air. Unfortunately, not the cool, refreshing air at that point. Getting back to a lot of the same by Thursday morning, and that just continues as we go through the weekend. Back to the We'll leave it on that note. Back to the That's the big story here as we go throughout this week into the weekend with that increase in the humidity. And of course, stay tuned. I'll continue to bring the latest on those rain chances Friday and the weekend. We'll continue to further map out that precipitation through the weekend going throughout the week. So urge you to stay tuned for the latest coming up. News 9 to 10 on Fox 9. News 9 tonight at 11. And as always, for that next edition of Nate at 8 tomorrow evening. Thanks so much for tuning in. Have a wonderful night, and I'll see you on the next edition of Nate at 8.